To order, 6 p.m., April 28th, year of our Lord 2015. If people haven't been keeping track, I'm going to ask everybody please rise for an invocation, pledge of allegiance. Let us bow our heads. O Heavenly Father, we ask for your guiding hand as we strive to protect this island we call home. We cherish this land, the sea and the marsh, and all your creatures which surround us. Please keep in your heart all those students who will be graduating this spring as they move on into the world. May this spring bring the citizens of this island closer to you in everything we do. For it is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Marie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Birdworth.
Here.
Councilmember McKelly.
Here.
Councilmember McKim. Councilmember Carroll.
I'm very glad to be here.
Councilmember Perrin.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yo.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Present.
Administrator Tucker.
Here.
And Attorney Patterson.
Here.
Thank you all for coming. Ryan is not going to be with us. I don't suspect he's had a death in the family. And family comes first, as I hope everybody is aware on most matters. Thank you all. Reading for journals of previous meetings. In your package you have the regular meeting minutes from March 31st, and the workshop was held on April 13th. Any additions, deletions, corrections? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're on the citizens' comments. We're going to have some citizens talking with us tonight. Very good. First on my list is Jane and Jim Gambrell.
I do not see them here.
They did not make it. Okay.
Maybe later.
Well, we have time. Kathy Kent, please.
Few of us are going to say
Okay.
We'll keep it short.
You have to speak in mic. Tell us who you are, where you live, and
Sure thing.
you got a couple of minutes.
Can you hear me? My name is Rini Cosmos. I live at 2403 Waterway on the island. This is Kathy Kent, her daughter Suzette, my daughter Mila, Christy Humphreys, and Jackie Kilrow. We all live on the island. We're all residents here. We all have children who have inspired us to form this little group and be here today to ask you all if we can discontinue the use of single-use plastic bags on the island. We all know what it does to the turtles. We all know what it does to the wildlife, to our beaches. And I think that maybe it might be time. Let's be the first in South Carolina to do it. And I've been to a lot of the businesses who use plastic bags, who unbelievably are in crazy support of this. They're ready, they're done. I've talked to Sherry at My Favorite Things. The Windjammer is into it. Banana Cabana, Coda, Island Ice, Bushido, you know, the list can go on. But we're here to see if we can make that happen. I'm going to pass it on to Jackie right now and give you some more info.
Hi, I'm Jackie Kilrow. Every year, 1 trillion plastic bags are used. That is 1 billion a day, which is a staggering amount. And plastic bags are an increasing cause of suffocation, strangulation, fatal internal blockages of marine life from whales to dolphins, sea turtles, seagulls, and it's only getting worse. So we want to work to eliminate the plastic here on the island to help keep our beaches clean, to help keep our bodies clean. It's now found in oysters, which a lot of us are eating. We like our oysters. So to keep our beaches clean, to keep our own bodies clean, and to help our marine life, it would be a great step if the Isle of Palms could go plastic bag free.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over.
Could you
Kathy.
please give us your address?
I'm at 2526 Isle of Palms.
Okay.
Have your comments? I would love to have your comments.
If you have written, she'll put them in the minutes if you're written verbatim. It's your choice. It's your choice.
You ought to see our scribbling.
I'm Kathy Ken. I'm at 3 19th Avenue. And we're asking you to ban the distribution of plastic checkout bags on Isle of Palms because recycling just isn't a good option. They can't be put into the blue single-stream recycling bins. And in fact, if they make it into those sorting machines, they wrap around the machinery, they have to stop the machinery, and someone has to go in and cut them out by hand. According to the EPA, only 7.1% of plastic bags were recycled in 2012. So we think reusable bags are the best option, but paper bags are also an option that will break down over time and won't poison us or our ocean. Plastic bag ordinances have been passed all over the world, including countries like China, cities like Dallas, Texas, beach communities like the Outer Banks, and there are over 200 plastic bag ordinances in the U.S. alone, but none in South Carolina. So we want Isle of Palms to be a leader and be the first in South Carolina. And Christy? Okay.
Hello, I'm Christy Humphreys. I am at 1600 Dunes Boulevard. And we are presenting a draft ordinance, which you can find in the first section of the handouts that Jackie handed out earlier. And we're asking for your vote to pass this ordinance. Just to give you a brief rundown of how we compiled this ordinance, we researched various other plastic bag bans that are in place. And we based our provisions on ordinances in areas comparable to Isle of Palms, so East Coast and especially coastal areas. Just one example is the Outer Banks, which has had a ban in place for over 5 years now, and has similarities to us with the high tourist traffic and being designated as a sea turtle nesting area. I also focused on some of the smaller towns, smaller cities and towns in similar size to us. And we felt that because we're a smaller town, we just wanted to keep the ordinance basic. However, we did include other model ordinances in the handouts as well that have included other particular situations in other cities that you may want to consider, exemptions and regulations and whatnot. But for our ordinance, we kept it very basic. And lastly, we added a 6-month transition period to allow enough time for businesses to use up their current inventory and stock up on new inventory. And as we mentioned earlier, our approach has been to talk to the businesses first, and we do want to keep their needs in mind and be sensitive to the businesses. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, and we just want to thank you so much for allowing us to present our findings and express our concerns on this issue. We're happy to answer any questions, and we welcome the opportunity to work with you to pass this ordinance. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for all your work. We do have it on our agenda, and we may get to it sooner than later.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask to...
There's more public comment.
Or, I'm sorry.
So, let's get through that.
Okay.
You're a little bit early. Mr. Satimo.
Joe, you're not trivial at all.
I've gone around and with a...
You better give her your address or she'll beat you bloody.
Well, everybody knows me. My name's Joe Satimio. I live on number 25, 24th Avenue. I've been here for like 28 years. Anyhow, the parking issue. I went around with a petition and asked if people what their opinion was of this. And I wrote up a little thing here, and I thought it was totally inadequate, but I got a second on it, and they said, yeah, this will do. So I went with it. So I got 57 signatures to where people basically think we need to have a referendum on whatever you come up with. And the referendum also needs to have how much this is going to cost, how many people are going to be employed, what other infrastructure is going to be involved in this, instead of just giving, just signing away on something that, nobody knows where this is going. Nobody knows how much it's going to cost. Nobody knows if it's going to work. So we want to be able to vote on this. And this is what these 57 people agree with. I only got 57 because it takes about a half an hour per signature on the average, and it's like I'm bothering these people, and I feel bad about bothering them. I mean, I don't want to be bothered a lot of times, you know? And I've tried to find out how many signatures I need, and nobody can give me an answer. Nobody.
Well, we know.
Yeah, 5%.
Election Commission, yeah.
It's the number of registered voters, which is a moving target, but the Election Commission is the only one that has the accurate number. And I believe a petition requires 5%?
Used to.
I believe it's
Used to.
5% of the registered voters. The Election Commission is the only one that knows. And the last time we had any sort of reference, I think we had 3,300 registered voters on the island, something in that order. So
57 doesn't quite get it, does it?
quick
a
math
start.
would tell you. Well, we're going to talk about parking later. I'm hoping you're going to stay around for that. It may answer some of your questions right there. Our whole intention from the start was to have it cost the citizens nothing and not require us to hire anything other than some enforcement personnel. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, anyone else in citizens' comment, anybody else on any subject? The weather, wind? No? Okay, very good.
Mr. Mayor,
Let's move on. Oh, let's move on. No,
could we reorder the agenda so under miscellaneous business, discussion of possible ordinance on banning plastic bags to be pushed up? Not, we want to get these kids to bed.
you're making a
at reasonable
motion to
time.
reorder the
Yes.
agenda.
I'll second that
Does anybody not want to? All right.
I told
All in favor?
those mothers that those children could go to sleep if they stayed and listened.
Yeah, there you go.
The problem is, he usually goes, no. All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good. For those of you following along, we turn the page, and we're on here to the discussion of, under 11, discussion of possible ordinances on ban the plastic bag. Obviously, you've done a lot of work. You've networked with everybody on council that I know of. I don't think you found any resistance anywhere along the line. I'm concerned, I'm glad you said that your draft has a period of transition for any business that has the need to do that. Have you contacted the big players? Harris Teeter's, of course, is the biggest player on our island.
Harris Teeter, I'm unable to.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Part of the difficulty is that when you speak from out there, it doesn't get captured on our system, and so then
Okay.
when we do the minutes, we don't have
understand.
the benefit of what you have said, so we would like that.
So we reached out to Harris Teeter, hoping to have Harris Teeter as a partner in this rather than an adversary. They are unable to I'm unable to pass along an official statement from Harris Teeter because an official statement must come from Harris Teeter to you directly. So you I can give you their contact info and they can give you an official statement. But what I can tell you is that they have donated 3,000 reusable bags for us to distribute on Isle of Palms to assist in the transition for this.
Well, when you mentioned Outer Banks, that kind of told me that they or their lookalikes have already converted to...
I believe there are 2 Harris Teeters in the affected areas of the Outer Banks.
I think our assistant manager here used to work at one of them, so...
Oh, okay.
We'll have...
Great.
We'll have, I'm not sure at what time, whether it's recently or not, but we'll have an in with him. The only other one I had a question on is subways. I've never been to a subway that didn't use a plastic bag.
Nor have I. I assume that with the 200 ordinances across the U.S., those are plastic bag ordinances of some kind.
They must
included
have
in
had
that
to address
number.
them in some way.
Some are bans, some are fees. Some they range. They're all different. But I imagine within those ordinances that there are subways. And even our Harris Teeter uses a paper sub bag.
Correct.
Instead of a plastic bag. And I believe that the ordinance that Christy wrote up for you is defining the bag as a single-use plastic checkout or carry-out bag. So the definition will be left up to you, what.
Right. We'll work the legal practice. You don't mind if we stay with plastic or with our pooper scoopers for doggy excrement? That's later.
That is an issue.
But those aren't single-use checkouts.
They're not single-use checkout. There must be other comments.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I too reached out to Harris Teeter, and they were going to try to have not one of the store managers, but a regional person come tonight. Obviously, they didn't make it tonight.
Unless he's in the audience.
Unless he's in the audience, or she.
Coleman Harris Teeter.
And then also, I brought these tonight, and there's some extra ones down here for members of our guests out here. That is a recyclable DuPont bag made out of Kevlar. That folds up into a small bag. It holds up to 30 pounds, and it's washable. And it's a great way for maybe local businesses to maybe buy them and put their names on them and pass them out to people for advertisements. But again, I think you're not going to hear anyone who's against what y'all are trying to do. We do have a legal counsel who has to help us with our legalese.
She's dying to get into this, I know.
Mr. Mayor?
I can tell, I'm sorry.
Please come to the mic.
I can tell you that, that in speaking to the businesses, like the Front Beach businesses, they're all for that. They want the reusable bags. They want to be able to put their names on it to either pass out or have especially the tourists during the tourist season, come in and buy them. Maybe leave some at town for tourists to come in or locals to pick up out of the donations that we got from Harris Teeter. But, you know, it's amazing the support that we have from the businesses who are using them. And, you know, Sherry at My Favorite Things is sick and tired of the tourists coming in and asking for more and more to put their baby's diapers in, or to, you know, put a beach towel in, and then they go to the beach and let the bag fly down. You know, they're tired of it. And I thought for sure that it was going to be the opposite. But
if you want to take that box to the different vendors that you've been to, because there is
that'd be great.
It's yours.
It's all yours.
Oh, yay.
There's one less thing that has to go in my house.
There you go. That's perfect.
And I went to the store today and I bought something and automatically put it in plastic bags. I said, oh, please, nobody see me after talking to y'all.
Take a picture of it.
Well, one thing you don't know is,
They'd be happy about that.
I may be the only one who knows it, but the Harris Teeter's regional manager owns property on the island. I think he and some buddies bought a place for their families here. So,
here we go.
So we have some leverage at the highest order in that regard. As I talked to you on the phone when you called a couple of weeks ago, I looked out my window and I saw a Lowe's bag blowing down the street. This was not good. You know, wound up in the marsh. And I had to go out and fish it out of the marsh because I just couldn't stand it being out there and creating litter and a future problem for somewhere down the road. Please.
Can I make a motion that we have first reading on an ordinance to ban single-use plastic bags for next month?
Well, we'll ask our attorney to put together an effort to get there. She may have other things going on. But yes, you can make
That's a
that
motion.
You can make a motion. Seconded. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So hopefully next month we'll have something to discuss and take forward. For your edification, we go through a first reading and then we have to go through a second reading at some later date, so it doesn't all happen in 1 month. I don't want to say government moves slowly, but government moves slowly. Thank you.
So maybe by July.
And then 6 months puts us at the first of the year, which sounds like a pretty good transition period.
But thank y'all for your work.
Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you.
Thanks, kids, for coming along.
Thanks, kids.
And y'all are welcome to stay for the rest of the night.
They should be asleep in 10 minutes.
Don't feel bad about leaving any time in the process here. I do want to make one announcement in the public comments section here, is that we, the city and others, have been working hard, lobbying the Corps of Engineers, et cetera, about dredging the property, the intercoastal near Breach Inlet. And the announcement is the Corps of Engineers is working in that regard.
Hear, hear. All right.
Very good.
Great.
I want to give due credit to Senator Graham in his office, They worked diligently on this problem. We met with their staff. Dickie Swears, who's our county council representative, took the initiative with county council and made county council. We went prepared to testify before county council, but they never needed to hear from us, right? We sat there for 2 hours and they passed it anyhow. They set aside $500,000, and it was that seed money that got the attention of the Corps throughout their management structure that they had some participation. And as a result of how they move monies, which is a mystery to most of us, but between Senator Graham's office and the Corps staff here, they found anywhere between $2.4 and $2.9 million to dredge the intercoastal portion that's all silted in near Breach Inlet. We classified, they had to do a rating, and they had 3 or 4 different categories. Ours fell under the safety and health issue because it's a safety issue there. And so we were number 1 on the safety matter, so we got first crack at the monies. McClellanville is quite interested in getting some dredging done up there because for the shrimping.
Yeah.
They're hoping we don't spend it all. not us, but the Corps, et cetera, because they will get whatever's left over and may need more, too. But the Corps has worked with us. They're finalizing. The monies are worked with mid-June. Plans and specs will be completed. The plant contracting to bid will be out thereafter mid to late August. The contract of award mid to late September. Mobilization and 90-day construction window. So hopefully by January, they will have dredged that area that is so dangerous for boaters. And I also need to acknowledge our city administrator and her work in sending letters to all of these folks, as well as our marina staff. But the marina staff, Brian Berrigan, et cetera, has not been bashful about the need for that. We actually took a trip with the Corps of Engineers. This is months ago.
It was about this time last year.
This time last year. Oh, it seems like. Only yesterday, and took the Corps down there at Brian's coordination to show them how bad it was. Not that they needed to know, but they needed to know that we were there, Dickie Swears was there, that it was a collaborative need. And from that, Graham's office and everybody kicked in, and we wound up, luckily, having the money set up within the Corps structure so that we can get the safety hazard taken care of.
So are you going to get our sand put back on the beach, Mayor?
Yeah, take it from back there.
Huh?
Jimmy.
You know, the easiest thing to do is go to the top of the bridge at low tide.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And just look at that bar going almost 3/4 across the channel. It's a boat's stuck there every day at low tide.
Barges can't, they can't travel other than high tide or near high tide. So it's a commercial hazard as well, but more of a safety hazard for any boater going up and down there. So I wanted to let the public know that that's coming, and hopefully nothing gets in the way of the Corps' work, but we'll stay on top of it and monitor it. Thank you all. All right, now let's move on.
Here goes the front line.
Keep up the
Good night.
Can we give some of these to...
We gave one to everybody.
Okay, so we'll take these and I'll make sure, let them know that...
No, that's not. Don't worry. Names are on there. I just,
For
yeah.
them to do. Thank you.
Good night.
If Jimmy's going to give a giveaway, he starts with us first.
He better.
All right, let me give the report from Ways and Means Committee. We met on the 21st. We heard from Laverne Smith on Waterway Boulevard. She also is concerned about parking issues and the parking plan as how it unfolded. Our treasurer subsequently reported to us we're 3/4 of the way through the year. That's 75% for some of you. Relative to budgets, our revenue is at 75% of budget, and we're 104% of revenue from prior year. So that's looking good. Our business licenses, building permits are up. Also, our rental licensing is up. Property taxes are 98% of prior year. And it looks like we're going to be tight, but we should be able to make our budget on our property tax revenues. Our general fund expenses are 72% of budget against the 75% mark, and that's last year we were at 71%. So General fund expenses are trending below budget also, so that's good news. We discussed investing any funds available that we didn't have an immediate short-term need for, investing in short-term CDs, better interest rate return. I would say the collective decision was we would look at local banks and what sort of CD offerings that they could make for short-term CDs, but not to go to institutions where our principal could be put in jeopardy in the event we had a sudden need for cash. I don't think anybody was interested in putting the principal in jeopardy in this exercise. So the treasurer has, and the staff have more work to do in developing a profile of what CDs are out there from our local banks. Obviously, they have to be insured, and we'll move on with that activity. We discussed our tourism income. Our municipal A-tax accommodations tax through March is up 7% over prior year. We have a new account that we reviewed, which is our beach preservation fee. That is only 2 months into the year, and it's first out of the box. So that'll be a separately distinct account that we'll manage and watch accordingly. Charleston County had not paid us as yet, but they had committed to pay us for the first half of their obligation. Well, it's not an obligation. They make a commitment to pay, but they're not obligated to pay. But they're going to pay us $264,000 from their accommodations tax. That's up from $197,000 last year, but that's a result of changing their policy where in the past they paid 20%. Now they're going to pay 25%, but they're no longer going to fund as a special needs some of our beach service officers and our recycling efforts. So we have to pay for that out of the additional 5%, which will leave us a little more left over so we can feel good, but not much. No state A-tax activity for the month, and our hospitality tax was up 13% over prior year. So people are eating more on the island, and eating and drinking more, I should say. So that's all good news from our treasurer's report. We move on. I'll get to parking here in a moment. We went on to award a contract, to approve a contract to Carolina Sports Surfacing in the amount of $19,700 for the resurfacing of the basketball and tennis courts. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded. This is against our budget of this year of $23,500 for that activity. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We moved on, and I'll make a motion to award a contract to Vic Bailey Ford in the amount of $26,557 for one 2014 Ford Interceptor utility vehicle to replace a vehicle totaled in a collision that we had on March 22nd. So I'll make a motion, and we have a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Discussion for the members of our public. Even though it was a wreck, there is insurance money that we are being paid.
Correct.
So we're just paying money in advance, but we are being reimbursed with insurance money.
Correct. The accident was not the city's fault.
Right.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Jimmy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We went on to award an extension of contract of 5 years to Schupp Enterprises for the collection of beach and roadside containers. This his contract will expire in September 2012.
We got a motion.
20, I must have numbered.
We got a motion, sir.
Motion?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion on this? Bill is nervously waiting out there.
And I just wanted to make the notation that the motion includes subject to revisions on the existing contract recommended by the city attorney.
All right. The motion has that proviso to it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We also went on to award DC3 a contract for our website upgrading. This is really something we were budgeting for next year, but because of all the tweaks and turns that Emily has to do with the current and to bring us in compliance with other needs for job application requirements, it was determined it would be best if we could get started now, this year. We have some monies available out of this year's fund, and to proceed on. So, do we need a motion to award this?
Yes, we did.
Well, let me award, do we have the amount?
Do you have the amount? I'm looking at it. It wasn't in the motion before.
Just to be clear,
I thought it was 9.
the total contract amount is $10,000 for the website redo plus $5,000 for annual maintenance. So the total in the FY16 budget is approximately $15,000. I'm looking to capture $5,700 that's available in this year's budget, which will be spent prior to FY16. So
But
just
we need to award the whole contract.
we need to award the whole contract, but in FY15
Very
we'll just
good.
capture that $5,700 that's available.
Okay, so we make that as a motion?
Second.
Motion, make that as a motion.
Okay.
All right.
Get that, Marie?
Marie's got it.
You got it. All right, never loses it. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, we went on to discuss our managed beach parking plan, which I know a lot of you are holding your breath over.
And Joe left.
Yes,
Did he leave?
He did leave.
You're kidding me.
He left.
Damn.
Maybe he'll come.
All right, maybe he was going home to watch this on TV later, huh? Since we last discussed this in any meaningful way, we met last week, I guess it was, discussed it because we had received, we had put out an RFP for software vendor to provide us a framework from which we could structure a website and an application from which people could procure a parking pass and then allow us to be able to manage the parking with devices that could read license plates and be able to tell whether somebody who has parked there has properly acquired a parking pass. We received only one bid for that effort. Frankly, the report from staff left council with many questions, numerous questions relative to the ability of A, that company, and B, the city to manage such in the framework that they had offered it. So if we went nowhere else, we would probably be looking for other bidders. We'd have to start all over again. But in addition, with that information that they had provided as far as what it would cost, staff went ahead and put together a budget and developed, based on a number of assumptions as far as number of passes, one-time costs, as well as ongoing annual costs, to see what parking plan could do from a revenue standpoint, with the whole intention of being revenue neutral, so that whatever our costs were, that over time we would be neutral and not have to incur costs, so that the citizens of the island wouldn't be having to bear the burden for this. And it turned out that their assumptions, while low, showed that we had I think it was a $69,000 cost over a 10-year period, which I guess over 10 years is not a lot of money, but it wasn't quite neutral. But we never got into the discussion of how to tweak the assumptions that were made. Councilman Carroll stepped up and made a proposal of basically, let's scrap, you can correct me if I say this wrong, scrapping the paid parking plan and move to a plan that only dealt with residential parking only areas in the residential areas. And the areas that had been designated for paid parking would be still open and free, and be free to anybody to park there.
Yes, sir, that's pretty much what
That's all
we
right.
discussed.
So we morphed into that long discussion, which received a lot of support, I would say, on council as we went through it.
I know.
Yeah. We asked staff, and they have done so, we've asked them to then look at that as a plan. What do we call that, C now?
C. Now we have concept C.
So I'm going to ask Linda to walk us through some of the assumptions in concept C. Yeah, okay.
And I don't know if there are any of these in the back. Are there any of these in the back? Okay. I apologize for that, because for those of you who are here, it would probably be easier for you to follow along if you had some of the visual aids. So Emily's going to try to get some quick copies made of Concept C. But as the mayor mentioned, what Concept C does is it designates some specific areas for beach parking. And I'm going to run down those areas. They're slightly different from what was on Concept B. So the areas for beach visitation parking are the Breach Inlet parking lot, 3rd and 4th Avenues between Ocean Boulevard and Charleston. And I want to add, for the benefit of council, that is a little bit more restricting than the directive that you gave us, but it was based on input from the police department, who said basically there virtually is no parking except from Charleston to Ocean on those streets. So we went ahead and made that deviation based on that advice, but I did want to point it out to you. So 3rd and 4th Avenues between Ocean Boulevard and Charleston, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Avenues between Ocean and Carolina. I also want to point out that in Concept B, we had included 10th Avenue as having available parking, but there is no available parking on 10th Avenue between Ocean Boulevard and Carolina. So we've made that change from Concept B to Concept C. So those are some things that at staff level, when we examined this a little more closely, we went, wait a minute, and looking at what's on the ground, that doesn't work. So we went ahead and made those changes. Then also, Palm Boulevard between 21st Avenue and 57th Avenue. All of Palm Boulevard between 21st Avenue and 57th Avenue, where it is legal to park, you could park to go to the beach for free. The places where you could not park would be any of the rest of the areas designated as residential parking only. And in order to park in those areas, a property owner would have to be credentialed with a sticker showing that if they want to park in the right-of-way, that the vehicle is registered to that property. So we would have a sticker credentialing method. We would envision that this might enable, we get rid of the hurricane reentry stickers and we have a residential parking sticker instead, and it would accomplish the same purpose. But for any resident that wanted to park on the right-of-way, they would be required to have that credentialing during the beach season. That would even be, if they wanted to go visit a friend, 3 or 4 blocks and they didn't want to walk and they were going to have to park on the right-of-way, they might be able to park in their driveway at their home, but if they wanted to visit a friend during the beach season, they would need to have that credential on their vehicle or run the risk of getting a ticket. There would be no beach parking on 43rd, 44th, 45th, 46th. This has 47th and 48th in it. They don't have parking now, but there still would be no parking there. And then 49th, 50th, 51st, 52nd, and 53rd Avenues. Those would not have any beach parking on them. They would be deemed as residential only. The beach parking would be out on Palm Boulevard in those areas. That is very different from what was depicted in Concept B. So that is a change as well. We would have the same provision that was in Concept B in Concept C related to visitor passes. We would have to make a determination how many visitor passes would be issued and for how much money for the residents. And this is, again, most of this is mirroring or attempting to mirror the City of Charleston's residential parking district ordinance. So that is the kind of provision that they have for visitors, is residents can buy a booklet of passes for a nominal fee, and then those can be used for their visitors to park on the right-of-way in front of their house. The time period would be consistent with what we had before, peak beach season only, Memorial Day through August, and only during the busy times of day, which are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We would have to develop some sort of accommodation for the marina, the rec center, and the Breach Inlet area. These are areas where none of those sites on the sites can accommodate all of the parking for the events that are held there. So there would have to be some sort of district accommodation for those sites that we've identified. The other thing, and I will mention this later, is when we were talking about Concept B, there was a vast area of the island that was totally unaffected in Concept B. lots of the backside of the island, none of the Wild Dunes area. In Concept C, any resident who would wish to park away from their home, not on the right-of-way, during the season would have to have the credentialing. So let's just use someone who lives in Wild Dunes. If they have a friend that lives on Hartnett Boulevard and they wanted to go see them and it was going to be necessary to park on the right-of-way, they would need to have that credential for their vehicle. So pretty much everybody who's a resident on the island would be smart to get credentialed for their vehicles, and then they just don't have to worry about it. So there would be this registration process that we would have to go through to credential residents' vehicles. We would also have to do the signage marking the districts as residential and the time period of the residential parking only, and then also the indication of the beach parking areas. So the next 4 pages in your handout graphically depict what I have just told you in terms of where the parking is for residential areas and where it is beach parking only. So you have the green areas are marked as residential parking only, and then the red areas are marked as beach parking. So when Emily gets back with these handouts, you can all take one with you and study it. So then what we did was we tried to take the same budget that we had before for implementing Concept B and decide what on that budget we no longer needed, which of course software was one of those things, but what we would need instead. Like, for example, we would need the booklets, we would need the stickers, we would continue to need enforcement, we would continue to need some additional clerical hours to be able to handle the credentialing and things of that nature. We would continue to need signs to be able to mark areas as residential parking only, and also a public education process. So we have detailed all of those expenses, split them up into an annual cost, listed all the details of what they are, and the one-time cost. The annual cost to this program we're projecting at $81,506. The one-time cost at $151,537 for a grand total as $233,043. The next page in your handout is the revenue to expense summary sheet to kind of look at, okay, if we implement this in this way, just looking at what our expenses are in 10 years, what would we be looking at? And it does show a cumulative net loss to the city under this plan to do enforcement as we would expect to need to do it with input from the police department. We would lose $1,272,400 estimated $402, as opposed to paying for permits, which would have had a loss after 10 years, as was indicated earlier, of $69,000. When one factors in the possibility of the collection of fines from people, not parking correctly, then we do have a revenue projection up against that. But again, the fines are a little bit difficult to predict. The more people comply, the fewer fines are going to be issued. But we still have to have enforcement. And so we were looking at a possible revenue projection of an increase of $85,500 in fines. So, that gets, if you look at both fines and expense, that reduces your cumulative net loss over a 10-year period down to $329,000, roughly $330,000 in 10-year cumulative expense to the city. Your last page, or next to last page there, are a list of pros and cons, which, for the benefit of the audience, I'll go through those. The positive side of this is that it can be altered, just like any parking plan after the first year, if it needs to be tweaked, what is not working well, what could be working well, it certainly could be altered. It could actually transition into having to pay to park in those beach areas in a future year if it were determined that that was the way to go. Enforcement would be somewhat simpler with just the two zones. You got a beach visitor zone and you've got a residential parking zone. rather than under other concepts where we've had multiple different zones. So definitely that would be a positive. We would have to consider whether or not there would be a residential designation on Waterway Boulevard, and we know that we've received some complaints from some of our residents about that marina overflow parking. If that became a residential parking only district, that would solve that complaint that we've heard about the parking there. We don't know whether or not implementing a program like this might shift people's travel plans so that they arrive earlier or don't come out until later. You know, one of the complications with any of the plans that we've been talking about is that they would not necessarily cure the ingress and egress congestion on and off the island, because many people are coming onto the island not to park, but because they have a destination to go to. They're going to a house that they're renting, they're going to a restaurant, or they're going to a friend, and they're all arriving at the same time, and then they're all leaving at the same time. So none of these concepts regarding parking have really done anything to be able to solve that problem. The plan addresses the concern about beach parking migrating further into the residential areas. Some of the speculation as we've worked on parking has been that if we do not get a handle on it now, as Mount Pleasant continues to grow and this whole area of Charleston continues to grow, that right now we only have certain areas of the island that are problematic. If we don't get a handle on it now, it will be 100% of the residential areas of the island feeling the pressure of the beach traffic. So what this does is that by creating these residential districts is it gets a handle on it at this point in time. The elimination of parking from 42nd to 57th Avenue, we've had kind of a long-standing difficulty with those streets, that there is no outlet on those streets. So if you drive to the end of one and park, in order to get out of that street, you've either got to manage a multiple 3-point that turns into like an 8-point turn in order to get turned around to go back, or you have to turn around in someone's driveway to go back. So taking those out of the beach access parking and moving it all out to Palm Boulevard definitely has the benefit of getting rid of that safety problem associated with beach parkers trying to get back out. The plan eliminates the need to have a software vendor, at least at this stage of the game. So that's one expense reduction. On the downside, there's no permit revenue to offset what expense that we have for this plan. So, you know, in looking at the cons, that is, you know, definitely a financial con. We will be investing the city will be investing, though, tourism funds, not property taxes, in trying to better manage the beach parking. But there's not offsetting permit revenue. There's only the potential for a more fine revenue. We have had a concern about the loss of the designation of full and complete access by removing 42nd, 43rd, 44th, 45th, 46th, 49th, 50th, 51st, 52nd, and 53rd from the parking. We did hear some encouraging news today that we might be able to count the parking on Palm for more areas of that than we knew. We don't know that that's going to be a definite, but we at least initially have gotten very informal input in that regard. So that is good news that potentially we would not be jeopardizing our full and complete beach access. It doesn't. This plan does not really address the safety concern on Palm Boulevard from the standpoint of we still will have a lot of people coming over here that perhaps cannot get into one of the 3 parking lots or find a space on Ocean Boulevard at the metered spaces, and they will just be riding around waiting for one of these beach parking spaces to come open. So potentially we could continue to have a safety problem because we've not done anything to really limit the numbers, whereas I think the paid permits, we saw that as the ability to kind of limit the numbers of people that are coming over here. It also causes 100% of the residents the impact of having to get credentialed, which is a little bit contrary to some of the input that we received at the public hearing from residents who said they did not want to have to do anything. So in order to have the luxury during the beach season to park where they would like to park or anywhere they might want to park on a public right-of-way, they would need to go to the trouble to get their vehicle credentialed. So that's kind of a con in terms of what we heard from some residents at the public hearing. As I mentioned earlier, we got a problem with the rec center and the marina site. And then lastly, and I'm kind of hoping that we can change this fairly easily, this plan, Concept C, has not been through legal or through SCDOT review, both of which I think that if it's solidified that we're going to go forward with this plan, I would strongly encourage that we take that step to have those things done in case there's anything that we're missing and haven't thought about, that the benefit of both of those actions would help us. There's 9 considerations on the next page that we have listed there for you so that you can think about them. Some of them I've already touched on. The unpredictability of ticket revenue, the fact that we could have this loss over time if we don't charge for the permits. We are going to have a loss. We're basically making a conscious decision to invest some of the accommodations tax money in managed beach parking, with only offsetting revenue with ticket revenue. We need to make some determinations about guest passes for residents. That would still need to be done. And there are little things, just housekeeping kinds of things, like if you ride around on the island, there are a number of boat trailers that are parked on the rights-of-way in front of people's homes or adjacent to people's homes. So it sort of begs the question, if we go into this program, would a residential sticker be required, or should it be allowed for parking like that on the right-of-way? There's also some trailers, you know, the big covered trailers like construction trailers and things of that nature that are parked on the right-of-way. So it would also create the question about whether or not those would need to be credentialed. Then there's the question of the property owner who does not live here, or the corporately held properties, as to whether or not we're only issuing residential stickers to residents who do indeed live here full-time. So there's that question that would need to be determined. Just like with the other plan that we discussed, Concept B, if we were to implement this, and it is problematic for whatever reason, we would have the ability to step back from it and liquidate some of those assets that would be necessary. We'd have, fewer assets to have to liquidate with this plan than we did in Concept B. So that is good. Just like with the last plan, only additional BSOs would be contemplated to handle this, and additional clerical time, but we still would need the proper equipment for those people and the proper signage, and the estimates for those would have to be refined going forward. So that is everything that that we understood from you all in the plan. And I'm going to look at Douglas and Emily now. Was there anything that we talked about at staff level, and Kim, that we should? So we wanted to make sure we got all the feedback that we needed from you all at tonight.
Hands go up.
Just to clarify for everyone, residents are still going to be parking in the 50s. Residential parking is still allowed. So we still have some congestion problems, because we know a lot of residents right now drive to Front Beach or to the 42nd or 52nd, whatever to park. So it still is residents are still going to be able to park on those streets.
It's not a no parking.
It's not a no parking.
Right.
It's residential only parking.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Thank you for clarifying.
Which is a big difference.
Yeah, a similar plan like this has been offered by Mr. Loftus on several occasions, but I still don't think that it addresses a very fundamental thing in terms of consistency. You had mentioned Fifth Avenue. We've entertained concerns that there's not enough room in the right-of-way to allow parking. We have people that are in the right-of-ways, obstructing right-of-ways, and we're not consistent there. I think we need to really take a hard look at that as well.
Okay. We'll ask DOT to come out and do another survey for what's in the right-of-way, see if they can get them to move. Who's next? Michael?
Whatever.
Oh, Michael, go ahead, please.
All right. Well, First of all, Linda, I'd like to compliment you and the staff on this analysis. I think it's well put together and a lot of work. And this is something we've been talking about way back when we had the meetings, like at the Citadel, going over parking and having open houses for residents. So I think this is something that has evolved, and I really see a lot of promise in this whole thing. I will tell you, if we're only going to give out 25 fines, based on these numbers, we don't need to hire any BSOs or buy any additional vehicles or anything else. I mean, we need to be serious about enforcing this, and because these numbers really don't add up. And now I knew we have tourism funds that could finance this, but it doesn't make sense to have hiring additional BSOs and go through the cost and especially the equipment involved in that. If we're only giving out, on a weekend, 25 fines, that's 5 tickets a day. I mean, what are these people going to be doing the rest of the time?
Well, and again, I said at least twice that the revenue from fines is really difficult to predict. And what we had to use as our measure for that was basically our data now. And our data now is somewhat skewed because most of the tickets that are written right now by BSOs for parking violations are written mostly in the front beach area for meters. And so, admittedly, that number, the ticket revenue number is hard to predict. So we used as a basis for what we put in here, sort of taking our number now and extrapolating from it. But because those BSOs, those 6 that we hire now, are so busy in the front, there aren't a lot of tickets written by BSOs elsewhere on the island. So that kind of skews our number a little bit for the prediction. But again, as was mentioned at the Ways and Means meeting, we don't want to make it appear that we are setting a goal for tickets. In other words, that we're saying you've got to write X number of tickets. Do I think it's likely, especially in the initial years, might be higher than this? It's certainly true during the learning process, but a lot of things affect it. When we first go live with the front beach meters, for example, they go live at the beginning of the season and they take money, but we're not active in writing tickets. We give a little bit of a grace time before we get out there and start getting intense about writing tickets because the meters have been dormant all season. So it's like a little bit of time, and those kinds of things would factor into, are we going to go out on the very first day that this plan is implemented and just go crazy writing tickets? I think that's unlikely that we would do that. We'd use some degree of reason. So again, there are a lot of questions about the basis of the number for fines, but we certainly wouldn't want to over-predict that too. So we're trying to be conservative and have some factual basis for the number that we're using.
Mr. Mayor?
Well,
Did you have more?
I'll make other comments. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Go ahead, Jerry.
All right, one of the biggest things, number one, is we heard from our residents loud and clear. And we've also learned over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, the growth of Charleston is snowballing. We're going to have a positive effect. I mean, I've talked to Linda Page and council members in Mount Pleasant and Charleston County, and they've gotten wind of this. And I think if we need, one of the biggest problems we have are people lining up to come to this beach at this intersection, and they can't get in Charleston County Park, and they just back up all the way to Mount Pleasant. If we start doing something good, like not charging Charleston County, Berkeley County, Dorchester County residents, it's free parking. But if they would help us by putting signage up saying the beach parking is full, they don't have to sit in line and back up the traffic everywhere. So there's going to be a positive spin-off from other communities to help us divert traffic away from the island, saying, hey, the beach is full. Or the bathhouse or things like that.
Well, let me just make a comment. I'm disappointed we haven't found a vehicle to charge people for parking in those areas, because that's a control that we could have an impact on keeping people to come to the beach only when there's available space for them, not just to come over and hope that they can find space somewhere on the island, which is what's going to happen now. So I would hope we could continue somehow to see if we can't find over time a proper way and put some sort of charging mechanism in place for those areas. But we don't have one, no one bid, so, well, we had a bidder, but we had so many questions, so many concerns, partly on our own ability to handle it, not necessarily their ability to feed it to us. But Sandy?
Mayor, to what you were just speaking about, I was always not in favor because I don't think we would control the number of people coming over here. I think that if you sold 500 passes, you'd still have 1,000 people to come over. I don't think the number of passes that you try to sell is going to control people coming over on the connector. And I think what we would have is people that bought passes would not be able to find a place to park because there were people that didn't buy passes that park anyway. That's one comment. The other thing I would like us to look at in this new plan is since there will be no paid parking, then why do our residents have to pay for their passes? At the time that they register their vehicles, why aren't they just given 2 books of passes that allows their guests?
That's for us to decide.
Right.
That's something that
That's
you
one
guys
He was following
consideration.
the Charleston model, which
One
is a
suggestion
charge.
I would like to suggest is that we not charge our residents for their passes.
I would say
And
most
as they-
residents aren't going to want a pass.
As they register, just hand them the 2 books or 1 book or
Well-
whatever it is, and if they need another one, come get another one.
Yeah, okay.
I also think that in establishing this as a residential parking sticker, if that's what we're going to call it, that I understand is going to take the place of our island sticker now.
I was just saying that was an idea.
It's an idea.
Yeah, we don't
I think
want
that's
cars with
a good
2
idea.
or 3 stickers.
Right.
just to-
I
just
think
to be
that's a
on the-
great idea, so that you only have 1 sticker, and it identifies the residents. It also identifies that they can park in residential areas. And then the other thing is in the first year, we had talked about rolling out a soft rollout when we're talking about the paid parking. Why can't we do the same thing here and pay the minimal amount of money that we need to? In other words, invest in those signs, but let's don't invest in trucks and ATVs and personnel until we see what happens in that first year. I think that by educating the public and having signage, like you said, like at the front beach and at Breach Inlet, have, where the residential parking is and having the signs. I would like to give the public the opportunity, just like when we put the white line. Remember how we had such a problem, but we put a white line and all of a sudden they're parking on where they're supposed to. I think that we can give our visitors the opportunity not to be policed in that first year. If we have all of these complaints from residents, then we can go ahead and invest in more. But to invest in 4 more BSOs, I can't remember what all the cost is, when we don't know if this is going to work. I would like to go ahead and bring out a soft opening of this and try it out for 1 season, and then make your investments. Then you can see, okay, we can get more, we're having a whole lot of complaints from our residents, then let's get some extra BSOs out there.
Well, basically, the BSOs and their equipment get paid for through the fines. They almost net out. So
Not if we do it 25 fine.
$233,000.
There's 80-some thousand dollars.
Baby steps.
Yeah, but why can't we take baby steps?
You put up a sign and don't do anything about it?
Well, we had, just to give you the staff level discussion on this, we had discussion about that type of possibility at staff level, and it was basically the consensus with a great deal of input from Chief Buchanan that if there is no enforcement, there will be just blatant wholesale violation of it. So, I know that it's a nice thought that if people see it posted as residential, they won't park there, but we just think that very quickly the word will get out that there's no enforcement, and so people will be parking there. And with our current complement of BSOs and police department, they're going to be too tied up at their regular locations doing what they regularly do in the beach. And I know now I get input from people, why isn't the police department enforcing these illegally parked cars? in other areas of the island during the peak beach season, and it's because the police officers are actually on calls, and the BSOs are all tied up assigned doing things that they cannot depart from in that moment. So what happens then is that there's no enforcement. There would be that much more of that going on, we would fear, if we roll this out and have very limited or abbreviated enforcement of it. So that was I'm just sharing with you what the discussion was at staff level about when we were talking about how many BSOs would be necessary. And you reminded me of something else that I did mean to point out, and that is if we do free beach parking, and the year that we roll this out, say it's next beach season, one of the neighboring communities does a charge for beach permit, then we will, I think, probably receive more of those visitors than from neighboring islands than we're receiving now. So that is just something to consider. Our motives have been different as we've looked at the parking circumstance. The City of Isle of Palms has always been looking at this because complaints about public safety and congestion. And in part, when our neighbors were starting to look at it, it was in part because they were looking for a revenue source. So if they continue in that vein, then then likely they would be charging for parking on the right-of-way where we would be offering it for free. It is just something to think about as we move down this path if we go with this.
I just can't imagine putting up signs and then having the residents expect it to be resident-only parking.
Well,
and then when they call to say somebody's parked there, we say, well, we don't enforce it.
But when we look at $100,000 in trucks and equipment and another 4 members of staff, and those trucks are just for a season, it's for a period of time, then what happens the rest of the year? We're using tourist money for vehicles that are only used for the tourist
time
time.
tourists are here.
Yeah, and then what happens to them after that?
They get garaged and taken care of.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of tourist stuff. We don't pick up, well, anyhow. Jimmy, you haven't said anything.
I just want to say for the record, I know that nothing's going to happen because I've been asking about this for 2 years. But I don't understand why we won't even consider looking at an outside contractor to handle this whole thing. Professionals that have done this for many years, why we won't even consider that.
Can I comment?
That's a good.
Or do you want to comment?
Well, go ahead. I mean,
We did consider it, and I think we thought that having an outside rent-a-cop writing a ticket and having, instead of having a Isle of Palms employee, is a different message, and that perhaps there wouldn't be the comeback that we would like. It would be more aggressive. But now we're not talking about even charging, so
there's no revenue stream for anybody coming in. But, I mean, I still want to have, ultimately, not tonight, ultimately, I may have to give up. I don't want to put meters down there, but we may have to have something like a meter. A meter's just line, I know. But that is something somebody like a professional.
Well, a business that meets its payroll, puts food on the table for its family by doing this type of work. I wish we could at least get them involved to know that's in the business of it. I'm in favor of really seriously exploring the possibility of letting them just run the whole thing, let them come up with their revenues, just like I said many times, like Riceville Beach.
But they all have meters. They all have a mechanism. Which,
every place is different.
Which the community puts in, and then somebody else comes in and manages the process.
Right, which is...
But we have the capital cost, whether that be signs or other equipment, that would be on the community to provide.
I just want to be clear. So you want to charge for parking then, even though someone else manages it? That would be a charge for parking versus free parking?
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say that at all. I said, why don't we bring in professionals that do this for a living and say, how would you construct it?
Well, they would have there's no revenue stream.
Well, I think we should let somebody a professional determine that. And that,
there's no
I'd
revenue
just like to
stream.
look. I'd just like to look at it.
You can't count them.
You can't count. Okay. Marty.
A couple of comments. Again, Linda, thank you and staff for all the work you've done. I know you got 1,000 things on your plate. You did a great job on this. Right now, part of the congestion is caused by the Charleston County Park being full and folks stopping to wait until someone comes out. I can see where we would have the same thing, and based on the traffic, I saw Sunday, the first good day, not a holiday, just a bright sunny day. Palm Boulevard is going to be full. Everything is going to be full. So I think we've got a good skeleton to start with here, but we need to flesh it out and figure out what's going to work and what's not.
Well, I'm going to propose we continue on with the parking for resident-only areas, signage, and associated activity with that. And we can continue to talk about how to collect for this as we go through life. Michael, your turn.
A couple quick things. Number one, I concur, Linda, we need to have some kind of soft opening, whether it's a month to get, where the BSOs are putting warnings on cars so they know it's going to happen, or just something that's going to set the stage, and then once we pull the trigger and we move forward with the fines, but we really need to be focused on enforcement. I mean, I don't want the residents to be paying a bill for this project. This should be sustained by our hospitality taxes and by enforcement.
Mr. Mayor?
I also think we need to have an advertising campaign. The negative, when we talked about this in the Planning Commission, when we talked about this in the workshops, and for the last several years, I feel I've been talking about this for 8 years, to be honest with you. The one thing that free parking and having a designated area, the negative is it doesn't encourage carpooling. And paid parking did that. But I really like this plan, but I really think we need to build a component into this where we have a regular advertising campaign where it can be digitized on our website. It could be possibly an app, but something that's going to just get that message out to entire Charleston area, carpool, carpool, carpool. And lastly, we probably need signs for telling people where Folly Beach is so they can go down there. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Folly Beach has exactly the same problem we do.
They have signs of Isle Palms this way, right?
Yeah, right.
They said they had a 5-mile backup. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, the chief isn't here tonight to defend the BSOs, so let me just take a crack at it. He has told us plain and clear that the BSOs we have are totally engaged. In fact, perhaps overworked. So any kind of enforcement on this plan is going to have extra BSOs. Now, whether we have more on the weekend and none on Tuesday and Wednesday, or however you work it, it has to come out, and it's an expense. It's an expense we're going to have to eat. There's no way around it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, in the same vein, we hired Charleston County policemen on a part-time to come out and help us, and I don't see why we can't do the same thing for that. And a soft opening, we did a soft opening at Front Beach. We gave several weeks. The meters were there. We didn't find anybody for the first few weeks, but after that, they got tickets.
We got a year to worry about how to.
Yeah, but
soft
there's
opening.
ways we can do this, and
And
the fine will go from 25,
The intent is not to be
50,
punitive, but educational.
And I'm thinking we're paying.
And get people to park in the right place.
Thank you.
Sandy.
I have two questions. Number one, the extra BSOs, the 4 BSOs, their responsibility is going to be parking enforcement?
Correct.
Okay. So there are actually 4 additional people that will be going up and down and making sure that they're... because I understood...
Kim, I'm going to ask you to help me on the staffing with this.
I understood that they might be doing other things.
Because you have to have the numbers because of working and scheduling. So I'm going to let Kim talk about how BSOs are scheduled and why we picked the number that's in here. And I do also want to say, if we have something major and catastrophic where we need all hands on deck for it, then people are going to be pulled off of ticket writing enforcement and are going to be helping out with that. So they could be engaged.
But if these 4 extra people are going to come on board, is there a need to actually call them something different, like beach parking assistants or beach parking, so that the BSO is the beach service officer, and we know that their predominant responsibilities are front beach and what everything that entails there. But we know that because this is going to be based on, and we're all hearing, enforcement is going to be the thing that makes this work. If we're going to hire 4 additional people, I'd like to see that their main responsibility would be the parking. Now, understanding if there's something that they have to be pulled off for, of course. But let's not just have 10 BSOs, all of which are at Front Beach.
Correct. The job description for BSO covers that as well as all the other duties. As we look at bringing them on board, the main focus is enforcement, but also the other duties as well. If we have those extra 4, then we can shift them in and out with like different days of the week. Your job may be to be on the front beach to handle the metered parking, and then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I shift you on this end. So we want to be able to move them around so they're not able to get into a rut, that they're able to do other things. But as Linda said, if an emergency happens, a missing child or drowning, anything, it's all hands-on at that time.
That's understood.
And we definitely need them for that.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
How many hours a week do they work?
They work a 40-hour week. It's a 9-hour day. They take an hour for lunch, so they clock out for lunch so that they get that break. They work 5 days a week, 2 days off. We try to give them 2 days back-to-back. Sometimes, depending on what they want or what their needs, if some are still in school, we'll alternate that, so it's 2 different days during the week. We try to work with them if they're in school, but primarily they're here for 40 hours for the week.
Kim?
Sir?
Do we really need them 40 hours? I mean, because really the problem is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We don't, I don't really see an issue like Tuesday or Wednesday with that. The signage is there, and if we can ding someone with a fine. But in reality, the real crunch time for the island is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if you look at all the peak days from the Sandtech studies, that backs that up. So maybe we should be targeting someone that can.
If they can hire somebody that
work on a weekend and maybe have 2 jobs,
they'd be more than happy.
Well, yeah. I mean, right now we're trying to hire people for a seasonal, and it's considered seasonal part-time because it runs from basically May to October. So that's a short time, and then to even have that shorter hours during the week, it makes it even more difficult in the hiring process.
Maybe someone who's
So you want to hire
wait staff.
You can use your skills.
Applications are available on the website.
Would you hire me?
Absolutely not.
Captain Usher?
Let
Yes,
the minute
sir.
show.
How are your applications coming? How many?
They're coming very well. I've got 4 right now that are scheduled for an interview with the chief later this week. Drug screens, everything are good with them. We have 4 more applications that we'll be doing panel interviews the following week after that. So I'm hoping to be able to bring these 4 on if they're successful with their interviews.
Great.
You got to remember these folks. We ask them to stand out in the heat of the day all day long. And
we do provide sunscreen and baseball hats. So
sunscreens and a hat.
But it's paradise.
And smile at the tourists that keep wondering, where's the beach?
There you go. And where do
Wait
I
a second,
park?
Mayor. Growing up in Pennsylvania, you would have died to be able to go to Wildwood and check out chicks on the beach. Come on.
Where's Marla? Is that recorded?
Okay.
I have one other question for Linda. When we're talking about the signage, are these wayfaring signs or are they traffic signs?
They have to meet SCDOT requirements for parking signs, parking enforcement signs. So yes, we would be trying to do them as close as possible to our theme, our new theme, but they're going to have to be, there will be official-looking signs because they've got to be approved by SCDOT.
My question is, if they're actual traffic or parking signs, why isn't SCDOT doing it?
They approve. We pay.
Okay, the no parking on Ocean Boulevard, we paid for those?
I think homeowners have paid for a bunch of those.
Okay. No, I'm serious. Is it less expensive for us to pay for the SCDOT signs and have them be an official, traffic-looking sign rather than one of our...
SCDOT is not going to take on the expense of this program. So, that's the way they would view that, is that we were creating districts And they're happy for us to do it, and they're happy for us to enforce it. And in order to enforce it, we have to have the signs that they get to approve to be placed on their right-of-way. But we're not going to be able to exact any funding from them for the signs.
Okay.
Only what's out there now that
So they don't have traffic signs that have residential parking sign, like, you know, a warehouse full of signs?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just ascertain and then pay for them and right.
Send them to the prison station. Prisoners make them.
Look at Donnie. They build every sign that we get stolen, they have to build another one
Okay.
for us.
Okay.
Or, yeah, we cause it to happen.
So
All right, we have heard all the discussion. My concern is how much do we build into the 2016 budget? Because I see in the bottom here it says these funds are split between 16 and 17 budget, because obviously it would be into that fiscal year. Do we just chuck it all in, or?
So what we would propose is that you all let us do that analysis, and we would move those numbers into the next draft of the budget that would be considered for second reading.
Okay.
So it would be based on the data that's here, and then we will figure out where the breaks are on the fiscal year. You know, obviously the signs are going to be the first thing that has to be put out there, so that's going to be an initial
Well, we
expense.
have monies this year in our budget for signage that we're not spending, so that'll, I'm not sure, we're not going to be buying the signs yet this year. We're in May already.
Well, we
aren't
already, we have $60,000 in the budget for 16 for signs.
I would be reluctant to move forward with purchasing things until you guys
Yeah,
fully
more
adopt
settled.
this. It's
Right.
been approved by SEDOT and has been through legal review. So I understand what you're saying, and what you're saying in terms of if we can exact some of the expense out of the FY15 budget because there are things there that we have not spent, then you all would want us to do that. And certainly we would try to do that, but I just don't think that we're yet at the place to contemplate that.
Okay, so we'll deal with that.
One other question. Am I seeing this right? We have $2,000 for uniforms for 4 BSOs?
Correct.
$500 a piece?
Seems like a lot.
Isn't that a lot of money? $500 for a uniform?
each.
Yeah,
We make them wash their clothes, but they still need 5 sets.
I mean, that's based on the
So they're-
historic cost to us, so.
Right.
Wow, that's a lot of money. And they take them home? I mean,
We don't wash them for them.
no, but I mean, you know, at the end of the season.
No.
No,
At the end
no.
of the season, they're, depending on wear and tear, they are probably no good anymore.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Linda, when you tweak the numbers, I'd like to see more in enforcement dollars. I think that number's way too low.
You think the cost is too low?
No, not,
No,
I'm
the-
talking
The
about
number
the
of,
numbers.
we're only going
Think
to
the
give
projection
25
for
tickets a
enforcement
weekend.
should be higher.
That's 3
No,
tickets a
yeah,
guy.
sorry,
25 a
just-
day, that's
no,
25
I think we're going to
25
see
a
a
day.
substantial
25 a day.
increase.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that was fine.
but
And that's sort of gravy. It's going to cost us a certain amount of
Yeah,
money, and
we
we
gotta
can
worry about the
recoup a
cost.
certain
That's-
amount.
I'm not
The cost
worried
is going
about
to be
the
there
cost.
originally, no matter
Let-
what.
and we all understand this is coming out of our tourism funds, state, municipal, or hospitality, in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, one last comment.
Go ahead.
I promise I'll shut up. When we first started about this paid for parking plan, part of the deal was, hey, we'll push people to the lots if we charge them to park on the streets. So now what we're doing is saying, hey, everything on the street is free, and then the overflow will be there. It's just something to think about.
Our lots get full.
Anyway, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, that's not a non-issue.
It's,
Bill says that's not a problem.
Okay, cool. I know.
We're not gonna hurt
On
them.
the island.
this is a Gordian knot, It's going to be, not sure we've solved it yet, but we're going to keep fighting it. And I still ultimately want to get to some form of paid parking in the areas that we're talking about now being free parking, and that may be, if Jimmy wants, a commercial enterprise, but we'll see when we get there. All right, do you need any more instructions?
No, sir. I did just want to make the comment, though, that one of the things that we think has contributed to ticket revenue being down is the fact that we have that white line out there. So compliance is wonderful, and, that's what we want, is we want exact compliance and people following the rules. But it also means a corresponding decrease in tickets. So just keep that in mind going forward. The more compliance that we have with this, the less ticket revenue that we'll have.
Linda, I've had complaints from people wondering why there's not tickets for people who did not observe the line. So you can go down there and see all these cars lined up, and then all of a sudden 3 cars on the wrong side of the line without a ticket. So, and they ask, and I say, listen, the police are busy doing this and doing that, but I think there's room for improvement with that, even with the white line.
Well, I would just comment because Linda made it, but I heard it this weekend, and everybody knows Sunday was a problem. At the same time, we got a call to respond to a 4-car accident on the connector.
Yep.
It wasn't 2 minutes later, dispatch was calling our sergeant to find out, they'd gotten a call, somebody was parked illegally, couldn't we send somebody down there to ticket them? Well, there's nobody available. They're all sucked up dealing with a 4-car. That took an hour and a half or so to clean out. And so, I mean, I don't want to say citizens have to be patient, but the officers are dancing as fast as they can. Nobody's sitting back. All right. Only other thing we did, I know I have some. What did I bury my minutes to? I haven't even finished Ways and Means.
Fine and great.
We considered and are going to be working on an amendment to our procurement procedures once the attorney gets through reviewing that. And we also considered a request from CARTA for fiscal support, which didn't get a motion to move forward. So, all right. Anything further for Ways and Means? What time is it? I exceeded my allotment. Public safety, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Safety Committee met Thursday, April 9th. All members were in attendance. Under old business, we discussed quick response vehicle. I know we've talked about that. We don't have the money to budget, but we are looking at various other things we could do, and staff's looking at ways to morph the existing staff into the best response for all involved. We're going to ask Charleston County to have an EMS truck on the island for the entire summer, whether that'll go or not. They attempt to have them here on the weekends whenever possible. We've got electrical connections for them, but as I understand it, they are so busy they keep the engine running so they can be away at a moment's notice.
Really? They keep it hot?
We discussed an amendment to the city's noise ordinance. Attorney Halverson is working on that for us. I think we had that as part of tonight's. However, we did not. I have not gotten anything back on the proposed changes to the noise ordinance, the fine-tuning part of it.
Holding off until
we get the whole thing.
Test period.
Right. And talking about the test period, see Carla Pope's in the audience. I believe they are still working, still planning. I've not seen any construction or anything going on, so they are in the research stage right now.
Research? He's still.
Come on up.
I shouldn't be putting words in your mouth.
Contestant number.
We'd hope to start this week. All the engineering took much longer than we anticipated, but it has been approved by the Planning Department, Mr. Kerr has approved everything. So we should start next week. We have a construction team that will be out there, and hopefully 10 days to 2 weeks it will be complete, and then we will let you know as to when the actual tests will begin.
Okay.
It's taken much
Thank
longer
you.
than we anticipated.
Great. We'll be driving by.
We'll be stopping in. We can be driving
And
by.
stopping in. Other things concerning noise, we discussed the noise ordinance enforcement related to short-term rentals. And we had a unanimous motion to that additional signage relative to noise be placed around pools and porches of rental houses and condominiums. And I would like to make that in form of a motion.
Second.
What kind of signage are we talking about? The same
Signage-
sign as we have inside?
Well,
pools and
Pools
porches.
and porches to
Noise.
please respect your neighbors. The effect that you see around swimming pools, I'm sure they've got them at
Do we
Wild
construct the
Berries.
sign? Are we going to have a standard, or what are we doing?
Let me,
we
oh,
would-
if you don't mind, let me
Sure.
opine as to what I understood the intent was at the meeting. What I understood was that there was a desire to perhaps modify our short-term rental ordinance to include a requirement that any exterior porches, decks, and pools be posted with a sign relative to noise violations. So I understood that to be what the committee wanted to bring to full council for full council's consideration. So that would be an amendment, a collective consensus about amending our noise ordinance, our short-term rental ordinance to make that requirement. Right now, as you know, we have a requirement that they post the placard, but my understanding was that perhaps consideration should be given to making it a requirement that they also post pools and decks and I don't know, anywhere on the exterior of the house where games might ensue that would, perhaps disturb people.
Are we going to be required to come up with some standard wording so that everybody's the same, or we leave it free form, that everybody does their own thing, or?
We'll have to come up with something.
I would say
We
we
never got that far.
Some minimum
never got that
standards.
far. Okay, so,
But that is our suggestion to council.
okay.
That's invaluable.
Michael?
Mayor, first of all, I think this is a great idea. I'm really glad that the Public Safety Committee has advanced this idea moving forward. Obviously, we'll have to, the proof is in the details, and let the city attorney work out the right language and what should be included in that, so, for the ordinance. But we also need something that's weatherproof.
Well, that's right. She's not going to design the signs.
No, but she's going to give
somebody-
us the language that will be
Okay.
support the peace and quiet of the residents.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I made that motion, being a property management company. And the biggest complaint we hear all the time are around swimming pools and decks. And, Carla Pope talked about, just the average voice carries, 60 decibels.
64.
And you get somebody up off the ground,
Right.
and it carries that 64 probably, 3 times the distance. So, it's something that I think we're trying to do to protect our neighborhoods. And I think it should be a responsibility of the owners of the houses. We should come up with the language, but I think we need to come up with the language that, this is a residential neighborhood.
It's constant amazement to me as to how many pools get built on this island every year. If you add up the number of pools on the island, we have about 4,300 residences. We probably have 1,800 pools. I mean, it's a huge number of pools.
Well, and then you raise those pools up off the
Elevate
ground,
them, yeah.
and then you're really
You
asking
put
for
teenagers in them. So I think Douglas, well, Sterling can work on the ordinance language. I think Douglas and others need to work on the preferred sign size and wording. He's not here to hear these words of wisdom, but I'm certain someone will share it with him. So. Okay, you're on. We're good.
Well, we have a motion.
We have a motion.
We have a motion.
Oh, sorry.
So, but
To
the
modify
point
the
I-
short-term rental.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Include
All in favor of the
signs.
motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Also, as part of that meeting, we talked about the Ford Interceptor utility vehicle, which we acted on earlier in Ways and Means. And in case you heard a discharge of black powder, that was from the small cannon at the Citadel Beach House on April 11th. I didn't notice it, so. We also discussed the RFP for managed parking software vendor. Of course, we discussed that earlier. We reviewed our fire and police department's proposed FY16 capital expense budget and the budgetary tools. I'm getting there. Then we went on to the highlights of the departmental reports. In the fire department, Chief Graham reported that police and fire responded to a report of a person being shot. It was a result of a domestic dispute. They also, on March 22nd, were called a motor vehicle accident involving a police vehicle, which was not our fault. It was the other driver's fault. Talked about that earlier. Personnel responded to a total of 76 calls during the month. 28 were EMS calls. So we've kind of flip-flopped on our percentages there, where we had less percentage of EMS calls. Fire inspection did 32 inspections and found 33 violations. Fire personnel averaged 32 hours of training. We did have some $8,300 expense on ladder truck 1001, which was a big expense for it, but we're still trying to stay within our budget. Included in the monthly report was a letter from the town of Sullivan's Island thanking the fire department for its assistance at the structure fire that was on February 25th. That was on Jasper Boulevard. Chief Buchanan gave the police department report. Again, the homicide was the first we'd had in over 35 years on the island. And we're hoping it's going to be at least another 35 before we have another. In the area of community service, police attended a teenagers meeting where they spoke to the attendees and helped them fill Easter candy bags. I'm sure some of you had children or grandchildren that were at the Easter egg hunt. Department initiated a new program called Kids and Cops, where officers interact with younger children who attend the preschool activity at the recreation center. And they spoke on 2 occasions on public safety rules and bicycle safety. They also held the first coffee with the cop at Acme Low Country Kitchen. There were 10 folks participated. Dispatchers handled 5,591 calls, of which 4,718 were with the police department. Officers made 397 traffic stops and issued 128 tickets. 4 officers are participated in safe installation of safety seats. Based on the city's participation in the classes, the city will be listed on the National Highway Traffic Safety website as a car seat installation agency. In association with Gaining the Training, the department is working with DHAC to provide the city with car seats to replace faulty seats that they may find while they're doing their installations. There were 16 noise complaints in March. 2 citations were issued, 9 warnings were issued, and 5 were found unfounded. Chief Buchanan reported the department participates in the law enforcement DUI challenge with 60 other agencies in the state and involves reporting on the city's traffic enforcement activities. But a large portion is reporting on the warnings, or as they refer to them, citizen contact form. The IOP Police Department has received this award for 3 consecutive years. and Officer Storn is receiving a special recognition for his DUI enforcement. The award is known as the DUI Bronze Heroes for those officers who have written 10 to 24 DUIs in the year. Officer Storn had 14 for the period measured. Now, our next meeting is at 9:30 Wednesday, May 6th.
Thank you.
Questions?
Questions for public safety? Let's get through Public Works next.
Thank you, sir. Public Works Committee met at 5:30 p.m. Thursday, April 9th, 2015. All members were in attendance. Citizens' comments. Robert Combs of 949th Avenue addressed the committee regarding his concerns about the dune and the way stormwater drainage is handled at the end of the street. The most knowledgeable person on the issue was Director Kerr, who was present in the meeting. He gave a history of it, and the problem has to do with a modified septic tank system in the neighborhood. But it was also noted that Councilmember Loftus had talked to other neighbors, if I understand correctly, and they approved of the work that's being done on 49th Avenue. And so we thank Mr. Combs for bringing his concerns to the committee and said we'd take it under advisement. We're hoping that down the road, a couple of years, it'll work itself out. It's just stormwater like we have all over the island. And then we, under old business, we had a consideration of contract term extension, September 2020 for Shup Enterprises, which we voted on tonight. We had an update on NPDES improvements, a long discussion. I won't bore you with it. You can read the minutes and then about what happened, but we're going to be splitting up the replacement of fuel tank replacements over 2 years. Total project's $474,000, but the first year the cost will only be $170,000. Departmental reports for March 2015. Director Pitts reported garbage collection in March is a 5-year high, and there's evidence that people are already coming to the island. Yard debris is also very high. Then we had an update on drainage. As you know, we had a really wet winter, and we have a lot of drainage problems. We talked about Loudon and Palm Boulevard along the bike path, 43rd and 42nd Avenues, the ditch at 29th and Palm, which we had discussed for a couple of months. The sand shell's been put down. It stabilized the ditch, and soon there'll be a no parking within 4 feet of pavement sign be installed. Again, we talked about handicap space at 21st Avenue. The administrator stated that the county's agreed to evaluate the problem, but she hadn't heard anything further. But we have that on the agenda for every month from now on until that problem is reconciled. Update on old lights and poles at Front Beach. Since we have the new lights down there, we were discussing removing the old ones, but then we noticed, the administrator noticed that the lights were helping with the problem down there, and she recommended the lights should stay, providing additional lights to the street, and if the four were not working, could be repaired. Assuming it's going to be repaired, be done at a reasonable cost. So we'll get an update on that next month. We had a review of the fiscal year 16 operating capital budget, budgetary tools, including capital projects fund, municipal accommodations fee fund, hospitality tax fund, state accommodations tax fund. Under miscellaneous business, this coming Saturday, April 25th, is the hazardous household materials collection and shred day. Last Saturday, at the large parking lot. I was tied up with tax returns. How did that turn out?
Donnie's giving us a thumbs up.
Oh, there he is. Doing good?
He's moving around back here.
in the rain.
Yeah, I usually get down there, but I was buried this past Saturday.
Now, Donnie tried to give me a signal when I was going through there that the county was blowing in his ear that they may be hesitant about doing this in future years. Does that sound about right?
The third-party response that I got, I think we need to address it with maybe some kind of recognition.
So if we need to send them a thank you letter and what a great job, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Pictures in the paper.
Yeah, we need
Too late to get there.
Absolutely, we need to keep that.
We need to keep that going, so.
Next meeting
Making
date,
a note
if
of
that's all on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And there will be 5:30 p.m. Monday, May 13th.
Thank you.
There's my report. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to add, I was a customer for Recycling Day down there, and Donnie did a great job, and the organization of this was one of the best I've seen so far. And I really think we need to do everything we possibly can to encourage the county and also the shredding group. I mean, they did a great job. They were very professional. I was talking about all the different things they were doing, so I was impressed. Well done, Donnie.
So I'm leaving there, and having read the minutes, I wanted to go down and look at the ditch at Loudon. And what do I see sitting on the edge of the ditch? Somebody has put 5 paint cans there. They didn't have the, I don't want to say what.
Take it down.
Thinking they could just take it down here, stay on the island, and solve the problem. No, they leave it there for us to trip over and find it at some one of our passings.
That ditch is in really bad shape.
Yeah.
It's stagnant water. It's not moving. It's good breeding ground for mosquitoes.
By the way, that's another letter we need to write to the mosquito control folks. They typically do a very good job. I just want to encourage them to keep going. So.
Right.
Yeah. The only other question I have for Public Works has to do with the drainage at 43rd and 42nd. Is that project done? Edie's was there? It's all done? Okay. Whew. Thank you. No other questions? Recreation Committee, please.
Recreation, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recreation met on Monday, April the 6th at 9 a.m. All members of our committee were present, and there were no citizens' comments. Under the departmental report, Director Page reported that all adult sports were in full swing. More of this later in the report. At this point, the staff is working on the 17th annual half rubber tournament, which is attended from teams from far and wide. Youth baseball also is in full swing, literally. Plans are underway for our annual IOP Beach Walk, which is this year for the first time a beach run and beach walk. The girls' volleyball is very popular. Wellness walkers are walking away every Friday. A new babysitters course has begun, and staff is researching the upcoming photography class being checked out how other clubs are doing it around. Camp Summershine will kick off with a water safety and community education class about sea life with a field trip by Barrier Islands tours and a trip to the aquarium. Right now we are interviewing counselors, and our Camp Summershine is filled to capacity with 520 registrants. Councilman Buchanan suggested a one-day adult program along these same lines about water safety and the health of our seashore, like we were talking tonight. Keenagers is averaging about 60 participants, and who also help staff are filling our Easter eggs. And then our police department called bingo for them. The Island Gras was a resounding success, with great entertainment by Haley Mae Campbell and the Dave Landio Band. Great food, vendors, fun stuff for the kids and for adults, and even more so, a perfect community event. We also had a St. Patty's Day gold hunt with 17 children participating. The annual Easter egg hunt, well, what can I say? Except wow. Weeks of preparation and minutes in execution. A popular attraction was also our fire trucks on display. I mean, they love going down to the fire trucks and walking around. Y'all got staff down here, and I mean, it's always kids everywhere, so thank y'all for doing that. Our last weekend's annual yard sale was packed. Lots of good stuff was had and sold off, only to be bought by the family to be resold in a couple more years to somebody else. Upcoming events, Music in the Park on May the 9th, starting at 1 p.m. I thought this was extremely well done last year, but I'm sad to say I'm leaving on my annual motorcycle trip that morning. Please note this will be the first event in my 3.5 years on council that I'll miss anything. So the rest of council has to fill in for me to be there and enjoy the music in the park.
We'll sing along in your behalf.
There was no old business. Under new business, we discussed at last week's Ways and Means. We have awarded a contract, which we discussed tonight, for Carolina Sports for the new tennis and basketball court. We also talked about changing our procurement process. When items like this come up, it takes us a long time to get something through, and we may miss a season that is upcoming. So this is something that I think that council needs to discuss as for how can we do something if it's going to be under budget to go ahead and get it done. So again, this is food for thought for council. When we interviewed our recreation operating and capital project budget tools, we've got lots of little things. I'm not going to go over every detail. Everybody has seen that. There's no reason to go over each and every item. We're doing the best we can to keep everything within our budgets and planning for the future and replacing things only upon failure if needed. One thing that we are going to also have to replace is the Christmas tree at Front Beach. But that's going to be after this Christmas tree season. After the season comes, the tree prices will drop. Then we'll go and buy a new one.
Swoop in.
That's right. There was no miscellaneous business. However, it was brought to my attention that we have been looking for a potential pitching coach for Island Youth. Recently, Sunday to be exact, we thought we found that perfect pitching coach. Only to be, well, shall we say, not quite. After lots of scrutiny, this person, who deserves a lot of credit for getting out there and trying it, deserves something to remember our giving him this opportunity for his capabilities. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to present... I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to present you with a token of our appreciation for such a valiant effort. Also, please keep your day job. There's still a few council members.
I can only take it in my left hand. My right arm's injured. Everybody signed it. I love it. I love it.
Norma Jean was very good in helping me. She helped me find a platform.
He's not in this boat alone, right? He's
no. She helped me find the concrete plaque for him, the marble plaque. She's not guilty at all.
The only comment I have is for one page has got an awful lot of dirt on it.
Well, I hate to tell you,
the real ball.
That ball had a lot of dirt.
This is the ball he had with Ty Cobb sign that ball, and he said, "You're getting that."
Our next
it was either me throw a ball out or sing the national anthem.
Right.
And I think even
Thank God for small things.
Well, that was no contest on that. She did a great job with that.
Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 4th at 9 a.m. So ends my report.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
Thank you, though. All right.
That's a good idea.
Let's go on to our Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. We met, our meeting was held Wednesday, April 8th at 10 a.m. Under old business, as Administrator Tucker and Treasurer Suggs did with every other committee, we reviewed the FY16 proposed capital and expense budgets and budgetary tools. I won't go through those. You've all had a chance to see those reports. Under new business, a consideration of a new social media policy was recommended by our city employee attorney. She noted that the policy is intentionally vague to cover all situations. Specifically, the policy states, the city consents to reasonable, limited access to social media during working hours or using city equipment. Councilman Ferenz questioned the meaning of reasonable, which the Administrator Tucker commented that limited access in the workplace was probably a good thing, giving employees the freedom to check their social media, but employees would not be allowed to steal time from the city. The motion was made to recommend this policy to City Council, and it passed unanimously. I would like to put that in the form of a motion at this time.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the social networking personnel website and blogs policy that you have in your package. A motion, I'll second it. Discussion on this? You've
and-
had a chance to read it?
I just wanted to clarify, this would become part of the motion should be that it become part of the personnel handbook.
I'll make that motion, that amendment to the motion.
Very good. Any discussion on this?
Quick discussion. He kind of alluded to it, and just trying to make sure, because I have that problem in my office where I'll come by computers and find Facebook all over there, is to make sure that it's used as a tool to get the message out, whether it be parking or fire or police or whatever, sports events, but not something for our staff and people to be catching up with everybody.
Right.
But they can, this allows them to check their
Yeah.
media sites. You know, if they're walking down the corridor, they can check their, any postings or whatever, but not sitting at a,
Right.
not sitting at a desk when
Well, that's
when
the point I'm trying to make.
when the
is-
phone's ringing, they're trying to, that's not allowed, right?
Right.
And definitely not solitary. I've seen that too.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
We then went on to review the police and fire department shift scheduling, which is very complicated and obviously different. It was a very informative session. Chief Graham went through the fire department schedule, which is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 10 employees, 5 at each of the 2 fire stations. And of course, during the week, the chief, training officer, and battalion chief and fire inspector are also on the island. They discussed overtime and trying to keep that as a minimum, but sometimes it's unavoidable. And then the police department, it's obviously different. They work 2 days and are off 2 days, and they work a 6 in the morning to 6 p.m. in the evening shift, 12-hour shifts. Then in the summer months, they do have some additional 3 to 4 officers selected to serve on a power squad, and their schedules are adjusted accordingly. I was certainly taken aback with the complexity of the scheduling, and actually marveled at how well and organized it seems to be. And I think that's a tribute to our 2 respective chiefs, Chief Graham and Chief Buchanan. Under miscellaneous business, we had the singled out patrol officer Dylan Reynolds, who recognized on February 22nd, he observed that the department's low-speed vehicle was the reason for smoke in the garage area of the public service building. Realizing the danger, the officer expeditiously moved the vehicle from the garage to an open parking area where the fire department personnel severed the smoldering batteries from the cart, averting a bigger catastrophe. March safety sweepstakes winners are in general government, Emmeline Juban, Police Department, Frank Fitzpatrick, Public Works, Bernard Gordine, and Fire Department, Garrett Medor. We, as was stated earlier, we have 5 vacancies in the Police Department with the beach service officers to fill. And our next meeting is May 4th at 10 a.m. Any questions?
Very good. Nothing for personnel? Very good. Let's move on to real property.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Real Property met April 8th. All members of the committee were present. Under old business, we are still discussing the Morgan Creek Grill lease amendments. Jay Clark and Carla Pope submitted documents showing the Morgan Creek Grill plan for an additional $300,000 of facility improvements, including insulation of the building, recovering the upper deck, modifying the dock to increase accessibility, renovating the dining room, and replacing the first floor walk-in refrigerator freezer. Linda Tucker, the city administrator, said these items are not items on the planning that was planned on replacing. Carl Pope said that Morgan Creek Grill would need to take out a loan to make these upgrades for the restaurant. I asked what the benefits would be for the city to change the leases. Jay Clark said that the current lease was unsustainable and they could not operate under the existing terms. The discussion went back and forth why the Morgan Creek Grill wants to make the changes, and Jay Clark asked that the city move quickly to amend the lease under the terms he has presented to Isle Palms. Members of the committee expressed openness in extending the lease under the current rental agreement. Carl Pope said since the issues of noise last fall, the Morgan Creek revenues have been substantially hit with not having outdoor music. Councilman Buchanan asked the progress on building the noise abatement system, and Morgan Creek Grill said it would be 2 or 3 weeks, which we heard tonight. On a kiosk replacement, the committee discussed adding a piece of art to replace the kiosk and recommended an additional $5 to $6K for the 2006 budget to cover that. We also talked about Moby mats from 28th Avenue. The idea was to lay Moby mat on that beach access, but the idea was dropped because the path has moved and it would require moving the path. We also talked about crosswalks. Some of them need to be refreshed and upgraded. But basically, Linda Tucker said that the city's holding off on the project until the paving project on the other end of the island, north of 41st Avenue, was completed over the next several weeks. That work is being done right now, by the way. Under new business, we discussed the allocation of the beach preservation fees. Administrator Tucker presented several options to the committee on how to allocate the funds for beach preservation fees. The committee discussed options that recommended that item be moved to Ways and Means on April 21st, which was discussed. All tenants' rents are current, and the next meeting is set for May 19th at 5:30 p.m.
Very good. Any questions for real property? All right, moving on, you have no meetings from Accommodation or Board of Zoning Appeals. You have the minutes from the Planning Commission.
Mayor? On the Planning Commission, I'd like to bring forward an idea for the Planning Commission. I know they're looking for constructive ideas that would be beneficial for the city. A good example is, I'd like to look at driveways. Example, on 42nd Avenue, there's one piece of property that the entire front of the property is a driveway. And I feel that, considering the flooding issues we've had on the island, that it might be a time to revise and look at that plan and see some guidelines on, how much of the island do we want to cover up with concrete. We have several properties across the island that literally the entire, side of the island is driveways. And I'd like to have the Planning Commission review that and come up with some ideas.
Well, my first reaction is you can't have a driveway without an encroachment permit. And the encroachment permit comes from DOT and must specify the width. Am I stating this properly?
That's correct.
Must state, and in certain areas, we've restricted. People have wanted, let's say, a round or
right.
double.
Like on Palm, we have done that. So
we've restricted that through DOT. They've accepted our restriction to eliminate just one.
Well, obviously, they would have to be a partner. If we made any changes to our current rules right now, DOT would have to be a partner. However, I've seen other communities that really don't have any control over this, and it's literally driveway to driveway to driveway. And I just feel from the aesthetics and also from flooding issues on the island, when we do have the heavy rains, that we need to have impervious
well, we can
places
look
for
at
the water
those
to go.
that you've mentioned, because we can check to see if they had the appropriate encroachment permit.
But we could go, but I'm saying
we can also work with DOT to find out, what are their standards, and they're the ones that have a standard.
Well, DOT was very cooperative with Isle Palms when we looked at the issue about having circular driveways on Palm Boulevard. And I would think they would want to work with us if the city decided to make some changes. They may, based on what the planning commission come back, the changes could be no change, recommend some things or whatever. So I think it's worth taking a study at it and give the planning commission some substance to work on.
Okay,
Mayor,
driveways.
don't we also have ordinances in terms of how much
Pervious versus
pervious
impervious.
Yes.
on a lot? So I think some of that is covered by that. They're not allowed to have more than what's 40% or whatever the percentage
Well,
is
it
of
depends on
property.
which SR1 or SR2.
Right.
But the curb cut is a more technical term for a driveway, is defined by DOT as far as what the width should be. But we may be able to work with them because they may be giving too many latitudes if you have a wide face. We'll have to see what it's like. I hadn't noticed that it got out of hand, but if it has, we'll get it back in hand. Barbara.
Yeah, there's some houses down at my end of the island too that literally the whole side of from the front of the house to the back, it's paved. Far more than 2 or 3 driveways worth. So, and it's just too much concrete
Well,
for flooding.
If it's new, that's
not new.
if it's old, my guess
You're
is
in trouble.
it's been grandfathered for years or something. But we need to be vigilant, so not a problem. Okay, I'm turning the page.
Bless you.
Bless you, right. All right, item 10, introduction of new bills, resolutions, and proclamation. I make a motion for first reading by title only of ordinance 2015-04, an ordinance to raise revenue and adopt a budget for the city of Isle of Palms, South Carolina, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015, ending June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Motion and seconded. This is first reading. We'll have a public hearing on this and a second reading. For those who are anxious to understand our budgeting, there is no tax increase anticipated in this, and we're able to execute the needs of the city and the residents as we have so diligently in the past. So, very good matter. So, Jimmy?
And for the first time in many years, we're not dipping into our tourism-related funds.
All right.
It's up a meager $17,000, which is very good news.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And in fact, I think that 17 is going to be wiped out.
Yeah, with the parking, it's, for second reading, it's going to be.
But we have other
It's a lot better than it's been.
Oh, much
Yes,
better.
no, you're
Thank you.
absolutely right.
All right, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item B, first reading by title only, ordinance 2015-05, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan for the city of Isle of Palms, South Carolina, pursuant to South Carolina Local Government Comprehensive Planning Enabling Act of 1994. Seems like a long time ago. Doesn't it? All right, I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
All right, discussion.
Would you like to go through it and just highlight any?
We're going to have a workshop. on
I'm
this.
playing.
We have-
I'm playing.
Oh. I can do that.
Workshop.
I can probably do it very well for you, but I'm not sure your patience. Okay, this is a plan. We're going to have a workshop with the Planning Commission on Thursday to go through the changes that they have authored, make sure we are in concurrence with it, but that'll be after first reading, and then we'll have second reading. But we have to advertise this, and I think this is a 30-day, whoops.
Midnight, done last week.
Okay, but we have a 30
So we can have the public hearing before the council meeting next month.
in May.
All right, Marie.
Excellent, excellent. All right, all in favor of motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Miscellaneous business, employee recognition. We've already talked about it, you've seen the memo, and we want to recognize and thank Dylan Reynolds for saving the low-speed vehicle and probably the building. I mean, I feel the fire crew probably wouldn't have encouraged him to jump on the vehicle and move it while it's smoking. Oh, he pushed it?
Pushed it.
Okay, all right. Proclamation for Women's Lung Health Week. Is there a reason why it can't be women and men's health? one health week?
I did.
I know, we didn't.
No comment.
I'm going to make a motion, we approve the proclamation and suspend the reading.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're into a proclamation in support of National Safe Boating Week, which is ironic since we just talked about intercoastal and the dredging and the need for safety in that. So I'll make a motion, we approve the proclamation and suspend the reading.
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, carries. We've already dealt with plastic bags. This is consideration of accepting, I'm assuming everybody's had a chance to read and may have even driven down to Wildwood to see what we're talking about, but you want to brief us?
Certainly. There's a section of Wildwood Avenue that has right-of-way in excess of what is needed for the road there. The Wild Dunes Community Association has applied to SCDOT for an encroachment permit to put a split rail fence along that excess right-of-way. And SCDOT has informally opined that they don't really need that excess right-of-way. And so we're going to need to hear some advice from the city attorney in executive session concerning the potential claims related to that right-of-way before council takes any action about whether or not the city wishes to accept it back from SCDOT.
Okay. Can I have a motion to go into
So
executive
moved
session and receive
to
counsel?
discuss, to receive legal advice.
All right, motion and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next meeting on the 26th.
Yeah, we are meeting on the 26th for those that are failing.